Morning.
Morning.
I've had no probably greater honor in my life than this. I'll tell you a little bit of a funny story. I was a young sergeant at 3rd Marine Division headquarters. So sergeants are pretty scarce in that building. A lot of brass. And I was part of a logistics readiness inspection team, and I had to go inspect the readiness of 3rd Marine Reconnaissance Battalion. Unfortunately, they had pretty suboptimal results across the board, not just the piece that I was inspecting. And so, I believe it was the assistant chief of staff walks into the office that I worked in and said, hey, Sergeant French, General Nash is going to hold the meeting at 1500 and you need to be there. Young sergeants didn't talk to generals every day, let alone be invited to meetings. And so I kind of panicked, and so the assistant chief of staff, he walked out, and so I found the gunny, and I said, hey gunny, what do I do? I'm going to be in a meeting with the General Nash. You know, he says, well, Sergeant French, when speaking to a general officer, never miss an opportunity to keep your mouth shut. Roger that, gunny? And so, you know, I stewed on that for a little while, and then the captain walks in, and I said, hey, Captain Cody, sir, I have to go to General Nash's meeting at 1500, sir, and I don't really know what to do. And the gunny said, basically, just keep your mouth shut. And so, what do I do? And he said, well, Sergeant French, he said, be brief, be brilliant, and be gone. And I said, okay, I think I'm getting the hint. So, but it was my honor last night to join General Conway and Randy and his team at dinner and spend some time getting to know General Conway. It was a true honor and privilege, and those words that the captain and the gunny had told me, I just never could shake them, but last night I kind of tried to, and it worked out okay. So that's good. So General Conway retired from active duty in 2010 after serving our nation for 40 years. Since retirement, General Conway joined and consulted on several nonprofit and corporate boards, including General Dynamics, Textron Inc., and Colt Defense. General Conway also co-chairs the Energy Security Leadership Council, a nonpartisan energy security think tank. Prior to retirement, General Conway served as the 34th Commandant of the United States Marine Corps. As Commandant, General Conway was responsible for the training, organization, and equipping of over 250,000 active duty, reserve, and civilian Marines around the world. General Conway did all this on a $40 billion budget. As member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Conway functioned as a military advisor to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council, and the President of the United States of America. Among the numerous leadership roles held by General Conway, he led 1st Marine Division as the commanding general and was also the commanding general of 1st Marine Expeditionary Force during 2 tours in Iraq. Get this part. In 2003, General Conway led the initial invasion of Iraq with 90,000 troops under his command. These forces were comprised of active duty, reserve, Marines, sailors, soldiers, and British forces. General Conway, most importantly, is married to the former Annette Drury of St. Genevieve, Missouri. They have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming America's finest General Conway.
Thank you, Travis, for that inspiring introduction. My mother would be really happy with that introduction. My mother-in-law would still be skeptical, but that's another story. Well, folks, it's great to be with you. Thanks to Randy and Tommy for the invitation to be in the land of Crockett. And I want to add my congratulations to the awardees today. That's one of life's little victories to walk up in front of your peers and receive an award. So congratulations. I would add just a little bit to the introduction, and it says more about the Marine Corps, I think, than it really says about me. 2 of my 3 predecessors were graduates of the United States Naval Academy. I was a graduate of Southeast Missouri State University, now in Southeast Missouri, obviously. And I don't know if you folks remember the movie Deliverance. Okay, it wasn't filmed in Southeast Missouri, but it could have been. I remember at about the time it came out, there were some good old boys there that said they thought it was a delightful little love story. You know, if you happen to find yourself in Southeast Missouri, just stay on the main roads and you'll be fine. But my point is, Southeast Missouri is a long way from the United States Naval Academy. The other thing is that a different 2 of my 3 predecessors had either a father or an uncle who was a 3-star Marine general. I do not come from such distinguished heraldry. My father was a soldier in World War II. I had a couple of uncles who were in the Navy in World War II. One was a gunner on a battleship, the other drove landing craft. But that's about the extent of my military background in our family. To sort of illustrate that point to you, I remember I had about 10 or 11 years of service in, and my wife and I decided to take our 3 children back to Northeast Arkansas, where most of my family still resides. So we got back, and Granny, met us on the porch, gave me a big hug, and said, "Oh, are you a sergeant yet?" And I said, "No, Granny, I don't guess I'll ever be a sergeant. I just made major, and I was pretty proud of that." So I started to explain to her how it all works, and at that point, my Uncle Bob chimed in. And Uncle Bob's a big, strong, farm boy, and he said, "Well, boy, if the Army ain't going to promote you, they ought to let you out." And I, didn't know how I was going to take that on, but in any event, my Uncle Bob, it was said, served 3 days in the United States Army. He volunteered, went to boot camp, and he tells the story that on the first day they gave him a toothbrush, and that afternoon the dentist pulled 5 of his teeth. He said on the second day they gave him a buzz hair, they issued him a comb, and that afternoon they gave him a buzz haircut. On the third day, he said they gave him a jockstrap. Uncle Bob went over the fence that night, and them people is crazy, that ain't gonna happen. So that's the extent of my military background, and that's just a little bit maybe through the intro. But we're here today to talk about leadership, and I want to get into that. But I think there's just 3 things I might do to maybe format what I'm going to have to say to you. First of all, let me apologize right up front to the ladies. I'm going to offer some stories, a little bit of colorful language in there, so please don't take offense. I'm normally quoting somebody else. That's my excuse. Right? The second thing is that what I'm going to talk to you folks about is not Leadership 101, okay? As I look around the room, I don't see a lot of spring chickens in here, so we're not going to be talking about basic level leadership. And based on what I've heard over the morning, you guys and gals are doing pretty doggone good. I wonder if I can aid or assist you in any way to begin with. So this is kind of a discussion I might have with my brigadier generals or maybe my senior colonels, okay, in terms of leadership thoughts for you folks this morning. And the third thing, and maybe this is most important, my experience is 40 years in the U.S. military, okay? That's where my leadership principles and values come from. I have not walked a day in your shoes. So my point is, you know, is there a difference between military and civilian leadership? Maybe. I would argue it's a pretty small difference, but you're going to have to take what I have to say, and each one of you is going to have to evaluate, is it worthwhile? Is there a bridge there for what you do? I tend to think there is, and I tend to think it's a pretty short bridge. But I just caution you up front, you know, the thoughts and the examples you're going to hear me talk about are mainly, again, from your great military, in this case, the United States Marine Corps. Okay, so let's get into it. You know, I think that from the first